This is a CBS News special report. I'm Jerika Duncan. President Trump has just fired Pam Bondi, his attorney general. Sources tell CBS News the president is not satisfied with her leadership as the Justice Department and how aggressively she pursued some of his priorities. Todd Blanche, the current deputy attorney general, will take the helm. Let's go straight to Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes. This news just coming in. How much of this had to do with her not aggressively investigating his political foes?
Jerika, our sources say that that is one of the things that frustrated President Trump, the fact that many of the investigations and prosecutions that he has made it very clear he wants to see DOJ pursue haven't really gone anywhere. In some cases, that's not for a lack of trying, that's not for a lack of seeking indictments, but simply because the cases themselves haven't been very strong, according to the judges who have looked at them. But President Trump, we're told, was also frustrated by her handling of the Epstein case, which has really loomed large ever since the start of his presidency. And so what we are told by multiple sources, Jerika, is that she will be leaving her post. She has been informed.
All right, friends, welcome back to Dr. John Podcast. Pam Bondi, as Attorney General, did face congressional pressure over delayed Epstein file releases. That part is real. Some documents remain redacted and millions of pages are still unreleased. However, the midnight phone call, Trump pacing unable to sleep, and the public unraveling are all fabricated dramatic storytelling with zero sourcing.
That she will no longer be Attorney General, but that she will be offered another post within the administration. And that is kind of President Trump's preferred route when he grows dissatisfied with someone in his cabinet in this second term. He fired a lot of cabinet members in his first term. This time around, he tends to ease them out and put them in another position so that he doesn't have to say that he made a bad choice or that they have been fired, because Pam Bondi in particular is someone who has been quite loyal to this president for a long time. What that administration post will be, we haven't been told yet, but we have been told to watch out for a Truth Social post from the president. And in that post, we may learn about the job that he wants her to hold going forward. We've also heard that at least temporarily, the job will be taken over by her number two, the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who was President Trump's lead defense attorney in his hush money trial, so someone who is also proven to be very loyal to the President of the United States. But there have been other names floated as possible long-term Attorney General cabinet members that would have to, of course, go through the confirmation process. And the name we hear the most is Lee Zeldin, who is a former congressman from New York and currently is the administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency, Jerika.
The actual situation is simply a routine tension between congressional oversight and DOJ redaction decisions, not some explosive personal betrayal between Trump and Bondi. So Bondi sits down at the witness table. The cameras are rolling. The committee members are sharpening their knives. And instead of defending the release of information, instead of explaining the legitimate reasons for delays.
All right, Nancy Cordes for us at the White House as the information still coming in. I want to turn now to Chief Washington correspondent Major Garrett. Major, I know Bondi was expected to go before the House and testify once again just a couple weeks from now. How much of that is playing into the president's decision to replace her?
It's an excellent question, Jerika. It's unclear, but there was a subpoena pending from the House Oversight Committee about then Attorney General, no longer Attorney General Pam Bondi's handling of the Epstein files and all related matters. That subpoena hung very heavily over what Congress may next want to learn and what the public may, through those inquiries, learn about the Epstein files and the Justice Department handling of it. Quite clearly, this Justice Department has not complied with the law that President Trump signed to release all of the Epstein files. That is a constant point of contention with members of Congress, mostly on the Democratic side, but not entirely. Plenty of Republicans want more information about what's still in the Justice Department's possession of the Epstein files. And now that Pam Bondi is out, she may seek to be removed from that subpoena authority of the House Oversight Committee, meaning she wouldn't have to testify at all. And there are plenty of Americans, Jerika, who watch the Epstein files and who look at this and say, wait a minute, is this a maneuver to keep the administration from having to answer more questions about what the Justice Department has in its possession, what it knows that the public still would like to know more about, but hasn't yet released. Keep your eye on that part of it. But to Nancy's point a moment ago, as Attorney General, Pam Bondi essentially told the president and the country the Justice Department was his. She invited him over to the Justice Department and made a speech basically saying, these lawyers, not in so many words, but by implication, work for you. Compromising in the eyes of many the independence of the Justice Department, and she did try to investigate and indict many of the president's perceived political enemies. In some cases, those cases went forward and fell apart under judicial scrutiny. Some did not even get Jericka past the basic hurdle of an indictment rendered by a grand jury that reviewed the prosecutorial evidence. That is extremely rare, and it speaks to the underlying weaknesses of those cases.
She does something that shocks even her critics. She goes on the attack. She calls the Democrats' questions theatrics. She accuses the Republicans pressing her of suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. She dismisses legitimate concerns about transparency as political games. She is combative. She is defensive. She is acting exactly like a Trump surrogate on cable news, not like the Attorney General of the United States testifying before Congress.
Pam Bondi tried to do things for the president according to his dictates. That she was unsuccessful did not mean she didn't try. But one thing we can say about this matter, Jericka, there are, even though it's hard to sometimes discern them, limits to the value of loyalty to President Trump, because Pam Bondi was fiercely, aggressively, rhetorically, and every other way loyal to this president, and it still didn't allow her to keep her job.
Major, it wasn't that long ago that the president publicly made a comment on social media saying we cannot delay any longer. It is killing our reputation, our credibility. He called out Comey, Adam Schiff, Letitia James, question marks as to why they hadn't been more aggressively pursued. What does that mean moving forward for Todd Blanche, for the president's adversaries? Do you think we can expect to see more of an aggressive approach now?
It means the advocacy is there from the President of the United States, but it doesn't mean, Jericka, the underlying facts of those cases have changed. The law is still the law, and cases can only be brought successfully from a prosecutor's point of view if there is enough evidence to overcome that hurdle, first of an indictment, then reasonable doubt. And many prosecutors, even those loyal and advocates of the president's overall law and order agenda, look at these cases and it's not there. There isn't enough to go forward with it. That doesn't satisfy the president. His advocacy will relentlessly continue. We can be pretty well assured of that. But that doesn't mean the cases can be prosecuted in any more successful way than they have so far.
And even as we look at the screen right now, Major, we see that large banner, the U.S. Department of Justice, Robert F. Kennedy building, but it's Donald Trump's face. When you talk about the independence that this Justice Department is expected to uphold, what do you think the American people make of this? I mean, we've had poll after poll showing a level of discontent right now with the war in Iran, but obviously we have a lot of supporters of President Trump who believe that he is doing the right thing. But when you see a banner like this displayed, it sends a message.
It does send a message. And let's not kid ourselves, Jericka. The political alignment of previous presidents and their selected and confirmed attorney general has pretty well been long-standing. It's not as if there are no political connections between a sitting attorney general and the sitting president of the United States. There long have been. But the Trump administration has made that more blatant, more obvious, rhetorically and otherwise, than any previous occupant, either of the Justice Department as attorney general or president of the United States. So, one thing that has happened under Pam Bondi's watch is...
And it backfires immediately. The Democrats on the committee smell blood. They press her on the redactions. Why are names being blacked out? Who is being protected? Is someone in the Trump administration being protected? Is the president's inner circle being protected? Bondi dodges. She says the redactions are being done in accordance with legal procedures. She says some information has to be withheld for national security reasons. She says some has to be withheld because of privacy concerns for people still living. But she never answers the fundamental question. Who is actually being protected and why? Then a Republican, Thomas Massie, presses her on the speed issue. Massie is not a Democrat. He is not a Trump enemy.
Dozens upon dozens, hundreds approaching more than 1,000 lawyers within the Justice Department have resigned, taken buyouts, or just quit because they do not believe in the fundamental independence of that agency any longer. That's their decision. It's indicative of what they believe has happened under this second Trump administration. It's not a full hollowing out of the Justice Department, but it's weaker than it was before this president came back to power. Now, some of the president's inner circle might say, good riddance. They're bad lawyers. They're not supportive enough of the president. But the president's own track record in defending his policies in the court of law doesn't suggest that the cases they're arguing or the people being sent to argue them are being all that successful.
All right, Major Garrett, thank you so much. I want to turn back to Nancy Cordes at the White House, our chief White House correspondent. I know you've been looking at emails, gathering as much information as this news is breaking. Nancy, what more can you tell us in terms of what you're hearing from Democrats, from Republicans, about the firing of Attorney General Pam Bondi, former Attorney General Pam Bondi?
Right. Well, it certainly fits a pattern in this second term, Jerika, in which the president doesn't outright fire people and say that they were doing a bad job or that he thinks that they were doing a bad job, but rather says that he is going to be assigning them to a job that he thinks is more important for them. It appears he has internalized a criticism that he got quite frequently in his first term when he did fire a number of cabinet members and openly said that they were not doing a great job, and then was asked, well, you said you're a businessman, you choose the best people. Why did you choose all these people that you now think weren't up to the job you assigned them to do? And so this time around, and Pam Bondi is the second or third, depending on how you count, cabinet official to be eased out of her role in this second term, he has chosen to go a different route. So, for example, Mike Waltz, who was briefly his national security advisor at the beginning of his second term, is now the UN ambassador, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio is essentially doing double duty as the Secretary of State and national security advisor. And then just recently, the president announced that Kristi Noem, the embattled Department of Homeland Security secretary, would be moving on from her job and taking a role as a special envoy, instead working with South American countries to deal with cartels and other dangers from the South. And now we're just waiting to find out what position has been offered to Pam Bondi, whether she's going to take it, and what that will mean for her role going forward. But I think it's highly unlikely that we'll see a statement from President Trump slamming Pam Bondi, because she is someone, as Major mentioned, who has been so loyal to him well before we got into this second term of the President of the United States.
Nancy, as you were speaking, the president just released through Truth Social a comment saying Pam Bondi is a great American patriot, a loyal friend who faithfully served as my attorney general over the past year. Pam did a tremendous job overseeing a massive crackdown in crime across our country, with murders plummeting to their lowest level since the 1900s. We love Pam and will be transitioning to a much needed and important new job in the private sector to be announced at a date in the near future. And our Deputy Attorney General and a very talented and respected legal mind, Todd Blanche, will step in to serve as acting Attorney General. That, again, a statement from President Donald Trump. So just that information coming in. Again, it's live TV, Nancy, but thank you so much for your coverage, Major Garrett. Again, the news today, the 87th Attorney General of the United States now out after just a year. Our coverage will continue on CBS News 24/7, your local news, and tonight right here on the CBS Evening News with Tony DeCopel. This has been a CBS News special report. I'm Jerika Duncan.
He is a conservative libertarian who believes in transparency and accountability. And he looks Bondi in the eye and says, "You have had these documents for months. You have the authority to release them. Why are you dragging your feet?" Bondi's answer is essentially, "This is just how the DOJ works. We have procedures. We have to be careful. We can't just dump millions of documents on the public." And Massey just stares at her because everyone in that room knows the truth. The Attorney General can expedite this whenever she wants. She is choosing to move slowly. She is choosing to protect the redactions. She is choosing to shield whoever is behind those blacked out names. And that is the moment where the hearing turns from oversight into exposure. Because the reason Bondi is moving slowly, the reason she is defending the status quo, is not complicated. The Epstein files, if fully released, would create a massive scandal. They would expose powerful people. They would create legal liability for people close to Trump. They would name names that the administration does not want named. Bondi knows this. Trump knows this. Everyone in that hearing room knows this. But Trump has been telling his base that he wants the files released. He has been making noise about transparency and accountability. He has been positioning himself as the guy who will expose the corruption. And now his own attorney general is standing in front of Congress and doing the exact opposite. So Trump does what Trump always does when he is disappointed. He lashes out privately. According to reports, he has been complaining to aides that Bondi whiffed on the Epstein situation, that she failed him, that she is not delivering, that she is weak. He is furious that she defended redactions instead of attacking his enemies. He is enraged that she moved slowly instead of dumping everything online. He is angry that she made him look bad by association. But here is the irony that cuts through the whole mess. Trump does not actually want the full Epstein files released. He cannot want them released because the files would expose people connected to him. The files would drag his associates into the scandal. The files would create headlines that damage his administration. Trump wants the political benefit of saying he is releasing the files without actually releasing the damaging information. He wants to have it both ways. And Bondi is stuck in the middle, trying to navigate an impossible situation where the president is furious at her for not doing something that he does not actually want done. The hearing itself was brutal to watch. Bondi was cornered from every direction. The Democrats pressed her on the redactions. The Republicans pressed her on the delays. She could not defend herself because there is no good defense. The Epstein files that have been released contain massive amounts of redacted material. Entire names are blacked out, entire sections are hidden. And the reason, according to people who have looked at these documents, is that the redacted portions contain names of powerful people who are still alive. People who could be litigated against, people who could face consequences. And some of those people are connected to Trump or his administration. So Bondi is protecting people, not necessarily intentionally, but that is the effect of her actions. She is defending a system where powerful people get to remain hidden, where powerful people get to avoid accountability. And Trump, ironically, is furious about it because he wants to use that information to go after his political enemies, not protect them. But he also knows that if those files are fully released, his own people could be exposed. His own associates could be dragged into the Epstein scandal, and he cannot have that either. This is the chaos at the highest level of government. This is the fracture in Trump's loyalist apparatus. Even the people closest to him are starting to break under the pressure. Now, let me take you to another hearing, because the Epstein file mess is not the only place where Bondi is disappointing Trump. There is also the revenge agenda. Trump has been talking constantly about going after his enemies, Comey, Schiff, Swalwell, all the people who investigated him during his first term. He wants accountability. He wants punishment. He wants the Department of Justice to be weaponized against anyone who crossed him. And Bondi is supposed to be the instrument of that revenge. But in a later hearing, Bondi says something that should alarm everyone. She testifies that Trump has every right to opine on investigations, that the president can comment on ongoing DOJ probes. And the moment she says those words, it is like a giant red flag going up, because she is essentially saying the president can direct the attorney general. The president can influence investigations. The president can essentially control the DOJ. That is a massive threat to institutional independence. But here's what makes it even worse. Even with that authority, even with Trump pushing her to move faster, the revenge agenda is stalling. It is moving at a glacial pace. Trump wants immediate action. He wants maximum punishment. He wants it all to happen right now. But the DOJ moves slowly. There are grand juries. There are trials. There is due process. There are rules that even the attorney general cannot simply ignore. And Trump does not understand why. He does not understand why you cannot just prosecute your political enemies immediately. He does not understand why there have to be procedures and delays. He just wants results. And Bondi cannot deliver them quickly enough. So Trump is caught in this terrible position. His own attorney general is disappointing him on two fronts. She is not releasing the Epstein files the way he wants, and she is not going after his enemies the way he wants. She is moving at the speed of the Department of Justice, which is frustratingly slow for Trump, and she is acting like she is the Attorney General of the entire United States, not just Trump's personal instrument of revenge. She is acting like there are actual rules and procedures that need to be followed. She is acting like the DOJ has to maintain some level of institutional independence. And that is driving Trump absolutely crazy. The disconnect between Trump's public praise and private fury is also telling. On Truth Social, Trump posts that Bondi is doing a great job, that she is tough, that she is fighting for us. But privately, he is telling aides that she is disappointing him, that she is not moving fast enough, that she whiffed on the Epstein situation. It is this bizarre split where Trump is managing his public image while privately seething with rage. It is exactly the kind of dysfunction that is poisoning the entire administration, and Bondi knows it. She knows she is in an impossible position. She knows that Trump is unhappy. She knows that both Democrats and Republicans are frustrated with her. She knows that the MAGA base is demanding transparency that she cannot deliver without creating a massive scandal. She knows that the rule of law advocates are watching her every move, ready to accuse her of corruption if she goes too far in weaponizing the DOJ. She is trying to thread a needle that cannot be threaded, and she is failing. The Democrats are pointing to her testimony as evidence that Trump is trying to weaponize the DOJ. They are pointing to her failures to deliver on Epstein releases as evidence of obstruction. They are building a case that Trump is abusing power. And that case is being strengthened by Trump's own frustration and Bondi's own failures. Every time Trump complains privately about Bondi not moving fast enough, it confirms that he wants the DOJ to be his personal weapon. Every time Bondi defends redactions, it confirms that the Epstein files contain damaging information about powerful people. The pattern is visible to everyone. The broader point here is that Trump's entire second-term agenda is built on the idea that government institutions will just do what he tells them to do. That loyalists will prioritize him over everything else, that people will put Trump above the law, above rules, above institutions. But it turns out that is harder than it sounds. Even Trump's most loyal appointees are constrained by actual jobs and actual responsibilities. Even the people Trump trusts are limited by law and procedure and institutional norms. And that is driving Trump crazy. He does not understand why everyone is not just falling in line. So Bondi's hearing and Trump's frustration with her is actually a microcosm of the larger dysfunction in his administration. He is surrounded by people who are disappointing him. He is surrounded by people who are not delivering on his promises. He is surrounded by people who are constrained by things Trump does not respect or understand. And that is creating a government that is failing to achieve his goals while simultaneously destroying its own credibility through corruption and abuse. Let me break down what this actually means for Trump and for the country, because the implications go far beyond one hearing and one attorney general. Trump's revenge agenda is stalling. This is huge. This is one of the core things Trump wanted to accomplish in his second term. He wanted to go after his enemies. He wanted to use the power of government to punish people who went after him, and Bondi is supposed to be the vehicle for that. But it is not happening. It is moving at a glacial pace. And Trump is frustrated. That frustration is creating pressure on Bondi. That pressure is making her defensive and combative, which makes her look partisan and corrupt, which undermines the entire effort. Trump is trapped. He wants the revenge agenda to move forward, but the people carrying it out are constrained by actual law and actual DOJ procedures. The system cannot deliver what he wants quickly, so he is angry, and that anger is becoming public. The Epstein files are becoming a symbol of Trump's broken promises. MTG has been demanding transparency. The MAGA base has been demanding transparency. Trump himself has been making noise about releasing the files. And the public perception is that if Trump really wanted the files released, they would be released. They would be out there. They would be public, but they are not. Because the files would expose people. The files would create scandal. The files would create legal liability. And Trump does not actually want that. He wants the political benefit of saying he is releasing them without actually releasing the damaging information. But that is not working anymore. People are starting to see through it. MTG is calling him out on it. The base is frustrated. And now even his attorney general is unable or unwilling to actually release them. The whole thing is falling apart. The promise of transparency is being broken. The promise of accountability is being broken. And people are noticing. They are angry about it. And that anger is fracturing Trump's coalition. DOJ independence is dead. Trump has essentially taken control of the Department of Justice. He is using it as a political weapon. He is using it to go after his enemies, and his attorney general is going along with it. She is defending it. She is trying to maintain a facade of independence while actually serving the president's political interests. That is a fundamental corruption of the institution. That is a fundamental threat to the rule of law, and it is happening right out in the open. Everyone can see it, and here is why that is bad for Trump. Once you start down this road, you cannot stop. Once you weaponize the DOJ, it becomes a political liability. It becomes evidence of corruption. It becomes ammunition for your opponents. Democrats are pointing to Bondi's testimony as evidence that Trump is trying to weaponize the DOJ. They are building a case that Trump is abusing power, and that case is being strengthened every day. This is all happening while Trump is fighting with his own base. This is happening while he is trying to deal with the Iran war situation. This is happening while he is facing impeachment threats. This is happening while his coalition is fracturing. And every day something new goes wrong. Every day another loyalist fails to deliver. Every day another broken promise becomes visible. Trump is running out of people to blame. He is running out of ways to explain why things are not working. So what happens next? Trump is going to keep pressuring Bondi. He is going to keep demanding faster action on both the Epstein files and the revenge prosecutions. Bondi is going to keep trying to thread the needle between pleasing Trump and maintaining some level of institutional integrity. And that is going to keep failing. It is going to keep being visible. It is going to keep eroding faith in the institution. And it is going to keep creating ammunition for Democrats pushing impeachment. There is also the question of whether Bondi will eventually capitulate completely, whether she will stop trying to maintain any level of independence and just become Trump's instrument of revenge fully, or whether she will decide that the pressure is too much and she will step down. Either way, it is chaos. Either way, it is bad for Trump. Either way, he loses. Because if she becomes his full instrument, then the DOJ is completely corrupted and everyone knows it. And if she steps down, then Trump has to find a new attorney general who might be even more aggressive about weaponizing the DOJ, which creates even more chaos and more scandal. The broader point is that Trump's entire second term is built on a fantasy of control. He believes that if he appoints the right people, if he demands loyalty, if he applies enough pressure, the government will do whatever he wants. But the government is not a private company. The DOJ is not a legal department. The Attorney General is not a personal lawyer. There are limits, there are procedures, there are laws, and those limits are now colliding with Trump's expectations in the most public and damaging way possible. Bondi's hearing and Trump's reaction to it is not just a story about one Attorney General. It is a story about a government that is broken, about an administration that cannot execute, about a president who is furious that the world does not work the way he wants it to work, and about the slow-motion collapse of Trump's second term before it even really gets started. Watch Bondi. Watch how she handles the pressure going forward. Watch whether she eventually capitulates to Trump or maintains some independence. Watch how Trump responds to her continued failures. Watch whether he replaces her or keeps her on. Because whatever happens next is going to tell you a lot about whether Trump's second term is going to be successful or whether it is going to be defined by chaos and dysfunction and broken promises. And based on what we are seeing so far, it is not looking good. It is not looking successful. It is looking like failure. And that failure is going to accelerate as more and more people realize that Trump cannot deliver and that his government cannot function. This is the story not just about Bondi and Trump, but about a presidency that is coming apart at the seams. About a leader who is losing control of the very people he appointed, about a movement that is fracturing because the promises cannot be kept, and about the slow, painful realization that no amount of loyalty can make the impossible possible. Trump wanted an attorney general who would do his bidding without question. He got Pam Bondi, and now he is learning that even Pam Bondi has limits. Even Pam Bondi cannot give him what he wants, and that realization is destroying him.